Asterisk, is Jungkook just a star or a victim? Why did Jimin's mother suddenly open up about HYBE's dark secret behind the scenes? Who actually controls everything? Check out this shocking confession that could change the way you look at BTS forever. Asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk, important. Asterisk, asterisk, before you continue reading. Asterisk, asterisk, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your opinion asterisk, asterisk after reading this article. Do you believe Jungkook is a victim or part of a big game that was hidden all along? Join the discussion below and help spread the word. A surprising news came to the surface. Not from the media, not from agencies, not from rabid fans, but from someone who has barely appeared in public, who has chosen to remain silent behind the scenes. The mother of Park Jimin, one of the most beloved members of BTS. His voice finally broke. Not because he wants to find a sensation, but because of the sense of justice that he has been hiding. Jimin's mother uncovers a dark secret that she thinks has been buried in silence for too long. That Jungkook may not just be a star, but a victim of the Korean entertainment industry system that is far more sinister than we thought. The question now is, asterisk, asterisk, is this just a phrase from an emotional mother? Or is there a truth that has been buried deep by HYBE, the giant agency that raised BTS? Jungkook, the golden magne, who has been looking perfect in front of the camera, always smiling, always professional, always there for the army. But did you know that underneath it all, there was an incredible pressure that almost took his soul? According to Jimin's mother, who came not through the media, but through emotional confessions to a group of close people that were later leaked to the public, Jungkook had been harboring a big secret. Something he couldn't express, even to his fellow members. My son used to come home to his dorm and cry, but not because he was hurt. She was crying because she couldn't help Jungkook, Jimin's mother said in a confession that shook the hearts of anyone who heard it. Are you starting to feel something strange? Why would someone as close as Jimin be so worried about Jungkook's situation when from the outside everything looks fine? HYBE, the large agency that houses BTS, is often seen as a loving home for its artists. But is it true? According to Jimin's mother, HYBE is not just an agency, it's an institution that holds so many secrets and sometimes so much power. He called there an invisible internal control system. Each member has a specific role. Jungkook, as the most shining public face, is said to have to face a double pressure, becoming an icon of perfection as well as a victim of covert manipulation. How could someone who seemed so strong actually be the most fragile? During this time, the public adored the closeness between Jimin and Jungkook. But from this confession, a new interpretation emerges. Jimin is not just a best friend, he is Jungkook's protector. Jimin's mother told how her son once wanted to leave the group because he felt it was too hard to watch the suffering he could not stop. There is one sentence that even made many listeners cry. Jungkook is not who you think he is. She is more than just a singer. She is a victim of a system that takes advantage of one's advantages to sacrifice her own heart. Asterisk, surprisingly, to this day, there is no official statement from HYBE responding to this news. They chose silence. But silence does not mean innocence. It is precisely this silence that makes fans wonder even more. What is really being covered? What drives a mother to open up to the voice she has been holding back? Jimin's mother also revealed that Jungkook once said, asterisk, I'm afraid not because of the outside world, but because of the people who are supposed to take care of me. Asterisk, this sentence is believed to refer to the system behind HYBE management that prioritizes image over humanity. Does this mean Jungkook doesn't have the power to be himself? After this news circulated, the ARMY community was divided. Some cried, some were angry, some did not believe. But one thing is certain, we can no longer look at BTS the same way. If only one member has been victimized, what really happened to the other members? As fans, as human beings, we have a responsibility. It's not enough just to buy an album or watch a concert. We must speak up when the truth begins to emerge. We have to ask, asterisk, who is actually in control of that magnificent stage? Asterisk. Jungkook once slipped a snippet of the original sound from the rehearsal room, his own voice, crying after a quiet argument with management, into an early draft of one of his mixtape tracks. But when the draft was sent to executives, The final result was cut, replaced with cold, polished studio effects, and without explanation. Though he himself emotionally requested that the voice remain as part of honesty. But as is always the case in a business structure like this, honesty is considered a threat. Emotional nudity is considered a weakness. And Jungkook, for the umpteenth time, is forced to silence Raza in order to maintain the illusion. Taehyung even once explicitly asked to be given space to design a concept album without genre restrictions, but the management gave him a note. We have to keep the tone stable. Don't be too experimental, we're not selling galleries. That one sentence was enough to destroy his whole idea that he had been building for months. He even had time to write a personal memo that is now circulating in limited circles. They say I'm too abstract. Maybe I'm just not a product to pack. One of the witnesses, a former documentary crew member who is now a major whistleblower, admitted that there has been an unwritten policy since 2020 that Taehyung and Jungkook should not sit next to each other too often in formal sessions unless directed to do so. Even as they attempt to create spontaneous moments, cameras are told to cut, or footage is kept unpublished. Their closeness was too strong, too honest, and the company was afraid that people would perceive it not as a best friend or a coworker, but something over which they could not control the narrative, he said. Some longtime fans noticed this change. Interactions that used to be natural and full of laughter turned into formal and awake. Jungkook, who usually looks for Taehyung first when he goes on stage, now looks cautious. Taehyung, who used to tease Jungkook on camera, now only smiles briefly and then switches his eyes. For those who don't know, it's just a regular shift. But now, it all comes down to pressure. The result of forced separation, not because they want to, but because the system forces. The climax of all this occurred when leaked internal contract documents emerged, indicating the existence of explicit restrictions on personal activities that intersect with other members outside of promotional interests. On one page, it reads, excessive interaction between certain members can create fandom imbalances and potential brand narrative rifts. If this occurs, curation of the content should be done immediately. What does this mean? That human relationships can be reduced to a marketing strategy? That friendship, love, or simply care should be measured by the calculation of shares? The report also revealed that Taehyung was given a written warning after mentioning Jungkook's name in a personal context at a non-official event. No one knew about this until a legal staffer leaked it. The warning reads, please keep the boundaries of interactions that may give rise to perception unmanaged. Do genuine relationships between people now have to be managed like digital assets? Even more surprising is the fact that it is not only social media that is manipulated, but also questions and interviews. In one international Q&A session, these two names were initially asked to answer questions in pairs. But according to one media producer, instructions from HYBE directly told the producers to change the script so they don't have to perform in an overly familiar context. And even more hurtful, Taehyung was known to ignore the script and answer personally. The next day, he was not scheduled for the two promotional sessions he had previously prepared. The reason? Reorganization strategy. Is this a punishment? And now, when all this began to unfold, a wave of army appeared who vowed not to be silent. Not because they want to create drama, but because they are aware. The silence all this time has perpetuated the wound. As long as the fans are silent, the agency considers surveillance unnecessary. Now fans are flocking to demand transparency. Some are preparing a class action, suing the company for public narrative blurring and emotional exploitation of artists. The most terrible was the statement of one of the former in-house psychologists whom the company brought in 2021. He said that the two names most often mentioned in crisis therapy sessions are Jungkook and Taehyung. He could not go into details because of a confidentiality agreement, but one sentence was enough to shake anyone who read it. They don't want to stop. They just want to be allowed to be human. And this is where it all starts to feel even crazier. No longer just confessions from former staffers or whispers from behind the scenes, but fragments of evidence that lead us to one suffocating question. Have Jungkook and Taehyung been deliberately sacrificed in an internal power play far darker than the public ever imagined? An internal presentation document from 2021 leaked through a whistleblower reveals a very inhumane term. Spotlight Distribution Strategy. In the document, there is a table of division of the intensity of the highlights based on the level of controllability of each member. Taehyung and Jungkook are clearly in the medium risk/high impact column, with the note, "Give limited exposure, only when necessary for engagement booster. Avoid triggers of emotional hysteria." The word hysteria here clearly refers to their closeness, which fans love so much, especially when together. Imagine relations between people, sincere and mutually reinforcing, are seen precisely as a threat. A testimony from former BTS scheduling staff during the promotion of B's album confirmed an unwritten policy that Taehyung and Jungkook should not be paired in live, unscripted television interviews. His reasoning: their interactions are too real to control. The staff admitted that some international interviewers were even asked in private to avoid questions about the relationship between members, especially if it led to a personal side. They were even asked to neutralize the dynamics when these two people were in the same room. And behind all those control efforts, there are direct consequences to mental health. A private message leaked from one of Taehyung's internal communication devices, allegedly sent to a friend of his in the art industry, reads, "I'm starting to lose myself. Every little decision is changed. Even the song choices are shuffled so as not to look too deep. They say I'm too honest." Jungkook is no different. In his personal journal, which a staffer said was left in the waiting room and read by mistake, there was a piercing line. "I wanted to be an artist, but I was made a voice puppet." It's no longer about the artist's limitations on label control. It is a matter of forcible termination of one's fundamental right to feel, think, and grow freely. Both Jungkook and Taehyung have become pawns in a system that makes trauma the price to pay for the continued existence of a sterile brand. Fans have been shown false narratives, while blood and tears behind the stage are silenced with rehearsed smiles. Another source who used to be on HYBE's crisis communications team revealed that whenever gossip or speculation surfaced that didn't go in the direction of the company's narrative, there would be a special team tasked with deflecting the public conversation, even by creating small frictions among the fandom to split attention. One of the methods used is to spread modified leaks, generate conflicts between fans, and secretly set up counter-trending topics through bot accounts. That is, it is not impossible. Every time the fandom makes a fuss because taekook is too close, it is intentional. Divisions are created so that the focus shifts away from unfair treatment of them. And one thing is not yet known to many. HYBE allegedly had time to consider separating these two artists in a long-term project. The so-called Project Polaris proposal proposes to gradually build their solo brand in different extreme directions, even to the point of suggesting Taehyung to pivot into the realm of contemporary visual arts with minimal mainstream exposure, while Jungkook is directed towards commercial pop and mass cultural exports. The rough translation: separate them identically, slowly, until the public forgets that they were once so aligned and strong together. But why should they be separated? Because if allowed to continue together, they form something uncontrollable with numbers, contracts, and creative meetings, a genuine relationship that is too real to fake. And that's the biggest enemy of the modern entertainment industry: emotional correctness. The army is now divided, not because they hate each other, but because they're confused about who to trust. While some continue to defend the agency for stability, others demand transparency and fairness. In the midst of all this, Jungkook and Taehyung remain silent. Their silence is now the loudest cry. They don't need to talk to make the world hear, and this is where we stand, facing the fact that those who shine the most are those who are most silenced. If a company as big as HYBE, which has been glorified as a pioneer of transparency and inclusivity, turns out to have this kind of dark face, then who else can be trusted? But what if it turns out that this story is deeper than imagined? Darker than even the perpetrators in the system are willing to admit? In follow-up testimony received from an internal source who was still active but fed up with the company's double standards, it was revealed that during the peak of BTS's global popularity, there was a closed-door briefing session that explicitly referred to Taehyung and Jungkook as two unstable variables in the corporate image. The words did not come out of random people, but rather HYBE Media's own strategic director in a meeting that was never listed on the company's official agenda. What does that mean if not a blatant admission that two young artists with honest emotions are considered a threat? Furthermore, the surveillance system against them is said to have increased sharply since mid-2021. a digital tracking device installed in a personal cell phone, not only for security purposes but also monitoring communication trends that can affect the brand image. It was even reported that one of the members of the personal security staff who was too familiar with Jungkook was transferred suddenly without notice due to interactions that were considered unprofessional. It's not just about professional work, it's about isolation, about keeping them away from people who give emotional comfort, about confining them in a censored reality point. One of the most painful aspects that has never been discussed openly is the role of controlled media. Sources revealed that several major news outlets in South Korea had actually had news material about the unfair treatment that occurred, but it never went up in print due to direct pressure from investment networks connected to HYBE. We were asked to withhold the airing of an investigative article about the manipulation of the distribution of performance time between BTS members. The reason? The stability of the entertainment industry. It's just a camouflage of their fear that the two names, Taehyung and Jungkook, look too big to control, said a former senior journalist from one of the major broadcasting stations. And if you ask, are there any restrictions placed directly on them verbally? The answer is yes. One of the former creative assistants revealed that during the production of Taehyung's solo songs, there was a request from above to remove references to deep relationships, both spiritual and emotional, that cannot be normatively interpreted by the public. In other words, they want every word, lyric, even intonation of emotions filtered from the depths, because too human is considered too dangerous. During one of the rehearsal sessions leading up to the big concert, Taehyung was known to reject a modified choreography concept without his consent. He reportedly said, "I'm not a puppet on your stage. If you want a robot, make your own." After the incident, he was not included in the next choreographic meeting, and the official explanation called only technical reasons. Jungkook also experienced the same thing when he refused to re-sing parts of songs he had recorded because the voice direction from the branding division does not reflect his identity as a musician. He finally complied with the request, but with a flat face and red eyes, according to a sound engineer who witnessed it firsthand. What happened after that was much more astonishing. Unwritten instructions appeared to manage the public's perception of the two by reducing emotional closeness in front of the camera and substituting narrative for work professionalism. It's not just a transfer of image, it's subtle character assassination. They remove love from the screen for money. Even more egregious is the allegation that HYBE is actively encouraging subtle infighting between fandoms so that no one collective voice can stand up for them in their entirety. By injecting small pieces of content that lead to opinions about who is more supported, who is more prominent, who is less loyal, they create internal frictions that paralyze solidarity. And as long as the army is busy arguing among itself, the system continues to work silently, controlling the narrative, forming opinions, and worst of all, separating two people who are supposed to reinforce each other. Even when Jungkook had uploaded a very personal cover of a song many fans believe to be a form of expression of deep sadness, management immediately removed it just hours after it aired, citing interference with scheduled promotional schedules. But behind the scenes, according to the former internal media coordinator, the real reason was much more manipulative. The song was too fragile and could damage the image of global masculinity that had been painstakingly built over the years by HYBE's branding team. Yes, you read that right. In the world in which they work, even sadness is a threat. Even honesty is an ingredient to be trimmed. Taehyung was not spared from the same disgusting treatment. In one of the interview sessions that was never released, he had time to answer questions about his dream of becoming an indie film actor and working on classical music. But the statement, according to former staff translators, was removed from the final script because it was not considered in line with the direction of the market. What does it mean? This means that an artist cannot tell the truth about his own dreams, unless those dreams can be commercialized. And if you think they are given complete freedom in a solo project, the reality is quite the opposite. The solo project is a golden cage, with the label freedom but locked down by deadlines, sponsorship contracts, and a long list of mandatory elements that they must enter and eliminate. There was one incident in early 2023 that really revealed how deep the repression of these two members was. As the two of them spend time together privately in Europe, a vacation supposedly free from camera surveillance, suddenly their photos are leaked to the Korean media. Not the paparazzi, but from the internal And according to the confession of a former security officer of the company, the cameras used for artist security were permanently installed in the area of their hotel without their consent. It's not just an invasion of privacy. It has already entered the territory of human rights violations. And who is crazier? They were not told. They know from the media. The question is, who decided that the bodies and personal time of these two humans could be monitored 24 hours, just because they have millions of fans? Who allows a company to be the absolute master of a person's emotional movements? And who will apologize? Unfortunately, until now there has been no statement from HYBE about these allegations. They chose silence, and maybe hope that everything is drowning in time and other news. But the army is not silent. On global forums, voluntary investigations by fans began to gather evidence, testimonials, and even old footage that is now being reread with a different lens. Many now believe that many of Taehyung and Jungkook's moments together were deliberately omitted from public documentation, even from official concert DVDs, because they were considered too personal, too intense, too real. Some are even more surprising and almost unbelievable to this day. A photo from the Backroom concert in 2021, which was never published, shows Jungkook calming Taehyung sitting on the floor with his hands holding his chest. A staffer told alternative media that it was a panic attack that occurred after management forced additional interviews despite Taehyung asking for a break. He didn't say anything. Just sit down. It was Jungkook who intervened, put everyone away, and just hugged her. They say it's too emotional for the public. But is that a valid reason to hide one's pain? If you feel anger starting to rise, you are not alone. More and more armies are beginning to question not only their loyalty to the company, but also to the grand narrative shaped by the system. They begin to realize that their idols are humans, and that humans are not created to be controlled like production puppets. Furthermore, there are rumors about the existence of an ethical contract, an internal document that contains personal prohibitions such as not being able to live in the same house with other members, not being able to upload content that discusses specific mental conditions, not being able to have intense personal relationships except through official channels. If true, then this is no longer the entertainment industry. This is the censor industry. And if you're still wondering, why didn't they just run away? The answer is as simple as, they are still tied. Legally, financially, emotionally for the fans. There was an invisible pressure that made them survive on a battlefield they had never chosen. Because every step out can be considered treason. Because every loud voice can be turned into a narrative dissident member. But until when? This news is not just a story about two artists. It is about a system that gives birth to a star with one hand, then slowly extracts its soul with the other. It's about how the Korean entertainment industry, and perhaps the world at large, still fails to understand that popularity doesn't erase one's right to be human. And if you've read this far, you have one task. Don't be silent. Comment. Share it. Say it. Ask questions they don't want you to ask. What does love mean if you can't stand up for the person you love?